It's email sent to government officials on the Freedom of Information Act website, requesting documents pertaining to the resurrection chamber of Gilgamesh, the location of his body, and the location of the buried Nephilim. That was sent on December 13th, 2018, and the status of that email is closed. We also have testimonies from museum curators saying that the very first place that the United States military went when they invaded Iraq was to museums within the heart of ancient Babylon. This may be one reason why the CIA is investing so much money recently into DNA editing firms, so that when they get remains or artifacts with Nephilim DNA, they can actually extract them and resurrect them back to life like they're trying to do now with extinct animals.
A cosmic sparkle of intimate force. It grew and spread, the storm of life. What became known as the giant wood tree. While all around primal energy stopped, eternal emptiness finally feels. Makes me longing for life, makes me longing for life. All you need here, no one creator. Makes me longing for life, makes me longing for life. All you need here. Water, ice, and storming fire, pulsing like the volcanoes, and a new destiny was written. Canda was strong, the secrets of the holy roots and the faith of Asgard and its big blood. Roots of ancient mind, reflected in Valhalla's light. Odin's eye, the eagle eye of Yggdrasil. He marked the truth. He worked alone, facing hunger and girth. To enemies that should be password secrets. They were the Nordic control the nine words. On them they rose, the sacrifice. They shot the gods with the mandate and knives. The naked spirit has his final offer. One of the weapons reflected glory. Takes a loving for life, takes a loving for life. Great and Roots of ancient might, reflected in the hand last night. All is I, the eagle eye of Yggdrasil. Carved in the west sun, the secrets of the holy roots and the fate of life that had begun. Roots of ancient might, reflected in the hand last night. All is I, the eagle eye of Yggdrasil.
Andrew Dawson filmed what he claimed was a giant on top of a mountain in Jasper National Park in Alberta, Canada. In the following days, he tried to get closer to find and film the creature, but in the process claimed to be stopped, harassed, followed, and stalked by the CIA. He then stops posting videos for over a month, and when he returns, uploads an update video that is extremely strange, and viewers pointed out that it seemed like it was forced. His next video that he uploads would be his last, because a month and a half later, sadly, tragedy struck. That's a brief overview of this strange saga.
Again, my videos weren't fake.
This is the strange story of Andrew Dawson under the TikTok handle Andy Capped, who claimed on his TikTok channel to have filmed a giant on top of a mountain in the Jasper National Park in Alberta, Canada, and then documented a strange series of events trying to refilm the entity in the following months, leading up to some tragic events. First, worth pointing out is that the Andy Cap TikTok page has many posts leading up to the giant saga, and most of these posts are just your average posts, him and his family, his dog, his truck, all these different things. Just the average type of posts that people share on social media. But on April 9th, he uploaded a video with what he called a giant on top of a mountain in Jasper National Park.
What is it?
It's a person, dude. No, seriously, pull over, pull over.
No.
It's a person standing there.
No, it's not.
Dude, have you seen what I've seen right now?
For something to be that large from that far of a distance, even with the zoomed in camera, would definitely be larger than just your average person. And the story really just gets stranger from here. At this point, Andrew starts to attempt to go back to the mountain or get closer to that spot to film or find whatever that being was that he recorded. This was 3 days after the first video was posted.
We are on our way. We're gonna go find somewhere closer, and I'm gonna set my camera on something so you guys aren't complaining how shaky it is in the truck. Because, yeah, internet has no chill. But that's the mountain we're going to. But we're just gonna try to get closer.
Here's later on that same day as he's gotten closer to that mountain. As you can see, that entity or whatever was on top of that mountain is not there. So it was not a structure, but something was actually up there.
Okay, I'm gonna use this as a tripod to try to keep it steady for you guys. And it's not even there anymore, too. That's where it was yesterday. I spoke to some locals and it comes and goes apparently, I don't know. See, that's me trying to keep it super steady with something. There we go. Do you know how hard it is to keep it steady when zoomed in all the way?
As you can hear, he said that he spoke to some locals and they said that the thing comes and goes. So this is starting to get into the realm of the story of the wild man or Sasquatch, and the different cultures around the world and the different sightings around the entire world who've claimed to see this entity walking around in the woods. And this is where I start to wonder the supernatural aspect of it. Is it something living on from the Genesis 6:4 era? Is it some type of entity that breaks through this dimensional realm the same way that UFOs do? What is the supernatural connection here? Because I lean more to the side that this is a supernatural phenomenon all around. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below about what you think these entities are and where they're coming from. And from here we get into the part of the story where he claims to encounter and be followed and stalked by the CIA or some branch of the government.
I just got stopped by like some CIA agent. He told me to turn around, said I'm trespassing. I said it's a public area, like a public park or whatever. Some local told me to take this path. I didn't get it on camera, but I'm gonna go again tomorrow and be prepared to be filming right now because he stopped the vehicle. His truck was blocking it. Said some like environmental issue was going on. I don't know. He told me to go back and said I was trespassing. I don't get it. It was awkward, but I'm going back again tomorrow to see if he's not there. But if he is there, I will keep a camera. I will film because the only angle I could get that I found today is the one I just posted earlier, and there wasn't even anything there. But I don't understand why the road's blocked off. I don't know.
On April 13th, so now 4 days after the original post, he posts what he claims to be a UFO in the mountain range. I'll show you this video, and then I'll show you a similar looking UFO that I posted on a video on my channel back in 2017. The footage is hard to tell. It's definitely not definitive, but back in 2017, there was a UFO and a video I made on it showing this same similar type of just blob of what they call contrail just in the sky. And as you can see, I'll put that video on screen, how similar that looks. On April 13th, he posted a video what he claimed to be some sort of extraction going on.
So they're extracting something out of here. There's 2 helicopters. What the f?
Now there's 2 more CIA, what he claims CIA encounters. I'm gonna play those videos and then the story takes a very strange turn.
The guy's here again. Yeah, this is him. What's going on?
Road's closed. Turn around.
Really?
Yeah, man. Just turn around, please.
Okay. Have a good night, man. So that was f***ed up. There he is. I'm driving past him again. Just turned around. I don't understand why it's closed off though. It's a public park or public road or whatever. I think that's the same vehicle from. Hey!
That was definitely the same video that he encountered up in the mountains. After that video, he doesn't post another video for an entire month, which would of course seem kind of strange if he was faking this whole thing. You'd think he would lead it on or continue to go back to posting other things if say he wanted to be famous and that's why he was faking it. But he doesn't post for another month, and then he posts this video, which almost seems like he's being forced to make it, and then looking off screen at like he's looking at someone to make sure he's saying what they want him to say.
Hey guys, I just want to give you an update. I'm not dead. I have not disappeared. I have just been busy with life. I couldn't get around to posting and updating you guys, so now I'm going to give you an official update of what's been going on. Sorry to disappoint you guys, but all of the videos that I posted were scripted. They're just fake. They were just strictly for entertainment. I'm sorry to disappoint you guys. I just needed to give you a quick update.
Again, it's strange that he's looking off screen the whole time when he's saying that it's fake, it's scripted, sorry I made those, and he's looking off screen as if he's looking at someone to make sure he's saying what they want him to say. The next video in this series is the video that I opened my video with, and that's him claiming that his videos were not faked, and the caption that he has on his thumbnail on this TikTok video is "I am scared."
You might not see me post ever again. My videos weren't fake.
That was 10 days after his video before that claiming it was scripted. And the very next day, he uploads this video with the caption "military."
What is that? That was not there yesterday.
and that was his last upload. All of that is of course very strange, but then tragically and sadly, a month and a half later, on July 1st, 2022, the Campbell River Mirror, a local newspaper, posts in the obituaries that Andrew Ryan Watchhorn Dawson had sadly passed away. As you can see, this is the same guy. It almost looks as if he's in the same truck he had. And to me, this just all seems so strange that there's a few coincidences to me that just make it seem like this is not staged. The fact that he was posting for almost a year before he posted this whole giant video, as well as the fact that right in the middle of this, as while all these videos are blowing up and getting tons of views, he just stops posting, then returns a month later, says it was faked, 10 days later says it's not fake and he's actually scared, and then the tragedy that he passed away a month and a half later. I mean, at some point, multiple coincidences take it to the point where it starts to seem like it's just not fake and there might be something more to this story.
The alleged giant has been captured on camera. Not much information has been released, but it seems to show a giant human in the military. The military can be seen looking around a building and a car. The majority of the men seem to be average size, ranging from 5 to 6 foot, but the other man that can be seen looks to be around 7 to 8 foot, with some suggesting they're even taller than that. Some have suggested this is proof the military are using advanced soldiers. However, some are offering a more logical explanation. They state that what we can see is an illusion, and the man is actually standing on high ground. People who've seen the photos are torn, with some suggesting it does show a giant, while others believe the illusion theory. Personally, I think it shows a man standing close to the camera, giving the illusion he is huge. But what do you guys think? Does this show a real giant? Let me know your thoughts in the comments.
Exactly what's going on here. Okay, I don't know if it's going to pan back over to those military guys again, but I will go back. Okay, as you can see here, I'm going to pause this real quick. Okay. Alright, it's coming up right here, this other part. See how they strategically pan in over here? We're going to pause it right there. Because somebody had said to me that the guy in question is this gentleman right here, okay? Now, he tried to say that this guy's just way further up from the guys in the background here, which I totally disagree with that, okay? Now, I'm going to show you something here. I don't have one of those particular line things that show on the computer, but I'm going to use this, okay? Basically, all these guys in the background are relative to each other, okay? This guy's back a little further, this guy's up a little further, this guy's back a little further, this guy's back even further, and this guy's just next to this guy over away from this guy. Yet, they're all pretty much the same height, okay? As you can see from this guy's foot right here, he's right at that curb. This guy is right at the curb as well, okay? He's maybe 3 to 4 feet away. This guy probably 3 to 4 feet away as well. This guy is not average, okay? He's abnormally large. He's a giant compared to these guys, okay? So all these guys are separate from each other in different positions. One's back a little further, one's up a little further, one's back a little further, yet they're all pretty much the same height. This guy is head and shoulders above the other guys. Head and shoulders above the other guys, okay? Somebody explain this to me. I mean, come on. I don't understand it. I don't know what's going on. I'm just telling you what I see. And what I see is a giant soldier. I don't know what he's doing there, but I definitely picked up on it. And I picked up on it the very first time I even saw this video. And this was like a few years ago. So hopefully this video turned out a little better than the last one. I want to know what you guys think. That guy does not belong in that shot, or he was planned put there for a reason for us to see it and pick up on it. They're introducing these soldiers, these hybrid soldiers, into our reality every day. There's reports of them in the Middle East, fighting in some of those skirmishes that are going on over there. I'm going to just play it one more time for you in its entirety, if my computer will quit glitching on me. And we'll see here in just a second. It's going to go back over. I'm very low tech, guys. I apologize. Look, all right, let's just pause it right there for just a second. I know it's blurry again, but as you can see, all these guys, and I'm sure they're all different heights, but basically they're the same height relative to each other. Okay? So even these people back here, pretty much the same size. They're all separate. They're all scattered about amongst each other. But this guy is head and shoulders above the rest. All right, well, I'm going to have to pause it there because the video went on to the next spot. Let's go back over here. Head and shoulders above the rest. There's just no fucking way. I wish it was clearer. I wish I can get a better shot of this guy and what his face looks like. But, yeah. I don't know. You tell me. Thanks, guys.
Person standing there, but it was clearly not a human being. This thing had a human-like shape to it and a clear place for the eyes and the nose and the mouth, but it wasn't a person.
That is part of a testimony from Jess Boiler, a deputy sheriff who encountered that entity in the Cascade Mountains in the late 1990s.
I was so curious that I had to check it out. I carried on walking for a while, but I was feeling a little nervous. It was darker than it should be for me to get back to the car before dark, and I didn't have a flashlight. The idea that I couldn't see him, but he could see me, made me very uncomfortable. That's just a prescription for an ambush. That's when I heard a second snap. He wasn't just watching me or running away from me. He was tracking. I was convinced that I was going to die, and that I was going to die in a very bad way. When I finally saw my car, I was hearing snaps, and as I got real close to the car, they stopped entirely. I remember now thinking, those snaps have stopped because he's right behind me, and he's going to grab me.
Give me a sign. Sing the words of innocence and broken pride. Make my conclusions fail. Send me a sign. Heal this broken melody. 'Cause each day I die in hell.
No, güey, llevo un bastón, aparte. No, güey, llevo un bastón, aparte. No, güey, llevo un bastón, aparte.
A ver, lo voy a mirar con...
Caramba, Dios mío, qué miedo.
¿Dónde
Hola,
está?
¿cómo estás? Mi nombre es
¿Dónde está?
Annalí.
¿Dónde está, hija? ¿Dónde está, hija? ¿Dónde lo ves?
Es que acá yo no identifico. Y arriba, pues en las rocas.
Ah, ya, así, acá con el largavista, ese punto que yo lo veo brillante es...
¡Dios mío! ¡Ah!
¿Qué?
¡Mamá! ¡Míralo! ¡Ha crecido! ¡Mamá! Se paró hacia arriba, mamá. Acá se ve. ¡Qué miedo! ¡Ay, qué miedo! Me voy a poner a llorar.
El dorado se te...
Hola. Hola.
Andalí, ya, Andalí, ya. Déjate vainas, ¿ya?
Mamá, tú no has visto lo que yo he visto.
Sí, que crece un poco más.
Se para encima de una piedra y nada más.
¿Quién ha crecido, el hombre o la nave?
Yo estoy filmando al hombre.
The video we're about to see now is basically recorded, I believe, in Peru back in 2012. Now, I'm not exactly sure what started this recording or how it began, but basically we pick up where this young lady is speaking, recording, obviously, and speaking into the mic. And I believe she's speaking to her parents or siblings, explaining how she's scared because she sees something standing up in the mountain range. Now, what we're going to be looking at is this here, these two people. As you could tell, you can see, like, basically somebody popped a squat. Two people, right? You can see how it might seem like their arms are kind of crossed, on their knees. And then eventually, you could see this one looking to the right, kind of doing the same thing. And this would probably be looking towards the lady recording. Now, what happens is, the lady's recording, and then all of a sudden, this figure to the left stands up, and you can see how towering this thing is. And the reason why I'm explaining it now is that way I'm not, pausing the video as much. But as you can see here, I mean, you can see how big these mountains are, right? And it seems like the lady is fully zoomed in. I try to see if it looked like a fake. Obviously, I'm not a video expert. I can't tell. I'm not an effects expert here, but I just want to show these videos to you guys to show you that, things are popping up out of nowhere, left and right now. And people are recording it. Obviously, a lot more people now have smartphones, and it's easier for people to capture something and share it now than it was probably, 60, 70, 80 years ago, right? So we live in a crazy time now where things are going to start popping up, and people are going to start catching them on their phones. And all I got to say is just get ready. It's going to get crazy. But let's start this recording here. Let's check it out.
Arriba, pues en las rocas.
Ah, ya, así, acá con el largavista, ese punto que yo lo veo brillante es...
Dios mío! Mamá!
So here you could see it just stand up, tower over the thing to the other giant to the right. It's towering over him, and you can see how it kind of just stands up and stretches its arms, and and is hanging out, you know, just kind of doing a normal thing, you know, kind of like we would after, you know, just sitting on a hill. You know, you stand up, you stretch, and then you head out. This is exactly what this thing is doing, but this thing is giant. This thing is humongous. I mean, these are his arms here. You know, you can see his thunderous thighs. I mean, this thing looked like it could pick up a boulder and just lob it to the town. I mean, that's how scary and petrifying this thing is. And the lady's yelling. I'd be yelling too. I mean, if I saw something like that, and for good reason she started recording, you know, she probably saw some movement prior, but this is insane. You see its head, kind of moving his arms, flailing him around, you know. And then eventually he takes a seat again. But you could see how it looks like a human. Right there it goes, sits down again. Looking around, like just poking its head. It's very scary, if you were to ask me. Intimidating. And these are, I believe, I'm not sure exactly what the one on the left is, but I think that, oh, it's standing on top. You see that? Okay, here to the right, we have the two, says aliens up here for some reason, and then the one on the left says people. But regardless of that, you know, regardless if it's an alien or a person, I'm not sure, it's creepy. You know, it's huge. To the right, we have the two entities here, but then to the left, we have one standing at the tip of the mountain, and then potentially another one here. What looks like maybe it has a gown. I don't know. Maybe it's a rock. I'm not sure, but for sure, there's one here at the tip of the mountain on the left. I guess these are two separate recordings, maybe. And you can see it. Look, it's going down. Oh my. Okay, so okay now. Wow. Okay. Okay, so now the one to the left, I'm very intrigued because it went from one tip of the mountain to the other, and it just put his leg out and kind of just posed there, right, like a statue. But then if you look to the left of that, there's another one that's kind of just standing there. It's not the one in the center, but it's kind of the one to the left, and it looks like it has like a red maybe cloak in the back or red cape. But you could see how it's just standing there. Right, they're just standing there, and then you can even say that a little bit to the left of that, there's a baby one, maybe two baby ones, and then maybe a lady, a female giant. I'm not sure. These could be rocks, right? They could be rocks. Totally. I mean, I could be, you know, thinking that it looks like a giant, but it could be a rock. I could be wrong. Basically, that's what I'm trying to say. But in other words, I mean, they do kind of look like they'd be giants or something. Let's see what happens here. Immediately, I mean, they stand out, right? They stand out. They look human. That's the thing. They have human figures. You know, kind of the silhouette of a human is there. That's what I'm trying to say. And then you have these rocks that are huge, right? They're huge. But then these things are towering over this huge rock. So that goes to show that these things could potentially be maybe 30 feet tall plus. Maybe even 40, 50, who knows, right? Obviously, humongous, gigantic human beings, I guess, but who knows? Who knows, man? These things are insane. These things are trippy. But let me know what you guys think these are. I mean, what else can it be, right? Could it be maybe some video effects? Could it be giants? I mean, we know that, you know, giants existed, and I believe this was taken in Peru, and we know that there's evidence, right, that giants did exist in the Americas. So could these be some leftover giants that, you know, got away and have been hiding away in the mountains, right? Have been staying there, living there on the DL, down low? Or is it just maybe some video effects? Let me know what you guys think. See you guys next time.
His first video, I think, that really kind of put her on the map. And what we see is these two figures that are kind of sitting in a sitting position, like a squat position, and suddenly the one on the left stands up, and he appears to be enormous. And we can tell this is kind of a popular mountain area to hike on, and Gladys does some research at one point and sends family members up there to have some kind of a gauge, especially with that pointy rock on the right there. That gives a good gauge. Most people stand just a little bit higher than that pointy rock, but certainly not this high. I mean, this is almost a 10-foot person that we see here. And really interesting. Really interesting. And here we can see the comparisons with her family and friends that ended up going up there. And of course Peru is the site of many ancient, unexplained phenomenon. And so it's almost not surprising to me that such things would turn up. Now the next thing we're going to look at is actually the photograph that was taken long before Gladys Cordova ever made her video. In '82, a student took a picture of this rock not far from here, and the rock is several hundred feet, and hence this creature would have to be an absolute giant. And she didn't see it at the time, and you can see there's a lot of light, but it wasn't until she developed it that this was realized by her. So next we're going to look at the thing that I really wanted to show, but this was all kind of background leading up to it. So Gladys now was filming her mountain range behind her house, as she often does, when she saw this man. And this man, again, appears to just be huge compared to the mountain. And again, she sends family members up to have a point of reference. And this is very difficult to hike up or down. I mean, a person would not move this fast. This person is treating this like it's a hill, really moving at a fast speed compared to, again, what her family members were able to cover as far as distance and the speed of covering the distance. And this man is really interesting. He almost, the first few times I watched this, he appeared to almost be ghostly, to have kind of a glow. And the more I watched him, he reminded me of these characters that I'm about to show you right here real quick. That this is kind of his clothing is kind of an old-fashioned style. And it seems like he's really moving fast, really has a purpose of some sort, almost to where he's stumbling that way. I mean, he could walk more carefully if he wanted to, but he's on a mission. And really amazing that Gladys caught this footage. Again, I encourage you to watch her channel and follow up and watch more of these videos, and watch the full video of this one in particular that she calls Strange Hombre. And here you can see he's reaching his destination now, and he's very cautious, very cautious about going around this point in the mountain. Really studying or listening. He's very apprehensive. You see him peeking around and waiting. And there are so many anomalous things that she films. She really, and I don't know, there's more than any one person could analyze with her footage. Really interesting things going on. But this man is not your ordinary man. And it's really interesting. And the next thing that I want to show after this footage is one of the many things that Gladys filmed, but it appears as if here you can see her family members, but it appears as if this particular creature, or man or human, or I'm not sure what he is, as ghostly as he seems. But now I want to show you another piece of footage that Gladys filmed with, I don't even know what to call them. I mean, they look like sheets of paper or plastic, but yet they move intelligently along this same mountain that Gladys is always filming. And it's almost as if to disguise themselves, these entities have taken the form of just some trash floating around. But I've watched a lot of this footage, and it's as if they're looking for something. And this trash, you know, if the wind was blowing in one general direction, it would just, these wouldn't stay here very long, and yet they do. They move down, they move up, sideways, peering into different crevices. Sometimes they're small, sometimes they're the size of, I don't know. I mean, it appears that some of them might be the size of many bed sheets. And again, it seems as if they're looking for something. Now, Gladys has also filmed shining lights, like instead of moving around like paper, they move around like lights, or what we might call orbs. And she has actually been able to communicate with them in several of her videos. When she asks a question, they'll flash back, and really, as much as one could communicate with flashing lights, it seems as if these things are very intelligent and can take different forms. And it always seems as if it's kind of a hustle and bustle, as if there's an agenda. We can also see in other of her videos where birds, big birds, I don't know, maybe condors or something of that nature, will come shooting over this hillside. I'm not sure if there's an ocean behind this hillside. I almost feel as if there is. But these condors will come and actually attack these creatures and try to snatch them away. It's really interesting. And I actually, on a strange, well, it couldn't be any stranger than this, but I saw one of these actually at my work, and I pointed it out to two co-workers, and we watched one of these, what seemed like intelligent pieces of plasticky paper float over our heads. And if I hadn't seen Gladys's video, I might not have thought anything about it, but it sure was fascinating. Once again, I encourage you to watch her videos. I'll leave the link below.
Well, maybe he did, but somehow he petrified that guy. And I'm going to show you that for a fact right now. All right, here's close up and personal of Il Gigante. And this is no question whatsoever. That is the tissue that wraps around. Now, they didn't put these bones and this tendon and this blood and all of that stuff and then wrap it around with some kind of tissue. Now, whether that is the actual tissue or not, whether it's been coated with something, I don't know. But I can tell you 100% factual. This is tendon. This is blood. This is blood over here. His arms up here, this is the pattern of the muscles and so forth in the arm. There's the center of the arm. I mean, this is not hard to understand. They tried to fix his face with some metal slugs they put in there to hold it together, but it is weathering away and falling apart. And let's take a look at what a regular leg looks like. You know, you don't have to be an anatomist to understand what you're looking at. There's the tendinous material that's very strong and strappy, and that's what gives you a lot of strength and spring in your step. And that's what it was. And then there's all the red, bloody, fleshy stuff that's eroded away. Here's another one, 16th century Florence. 16th century Colossus, sculptured in Florence. It wasn't sculptured in Florence unless they did it in the 1600s, 16th century, 1500s. And that is an absolutely living creature at one time. And it is strangling something that looks like a little dragon or something. Now, we're going to look at some pictures of this. This is not something that can be disputed. And you could go take DNA from these things. That's a fact. You can get DNA out of that. They know this now. So don't tell me that I'm wrong without doing any of that work. Because I'm telling you right now, this is virtually certain. If you don't look at it, that's just ignore it. That's all. All right, I understand colors, I understand textures, I understand tendons. And that's tendon running up from his shoulder. And that is the muscle, same looking muscle that was running around that guy's leg. Now, whether they somehow petrified the flesh and the inside stuff, I guess got sort of petrified too. But you could see underneath here. This is kaolin clays. This is, they patched it here and there. And then the guy excavated inside of this guy's body and made little rooms in there to make it look like he did something. Then he put a dragon's nest on his back. And that's what they call doing the job. Now, this right here is falling apart. This guy's arm is falling apart. And that's tendinous material. That's just strangling some kind of a little dragon-looking thing. And all of this blood stuff that's running out of here, that's very, very biological, can be tested. All right, here's from the back, looking at the Colossus. And this is the flesh that coats the outside of everything. They somehow had a way to stabilize that. And it must have been instantaneously. And that's what Ovid said. They could just go click and it was done. Well, let me show you what. Medusa had the keys to this whole thing. Now, there was a head, the Medusa head, after it was severed, it still did the job. Now, at some point, they were able to make these giants, and there was giants everywhere, and they could stabilize them in midstream. All right.
Nuevamente un supuesto gigante es visto y grabado en un cerro de aguas calientes.
See, like, what is he doing? Like, see, is this someone putting something on his head, or is this giant just bending over at the waist?
En México. Este video se viralizó en las redes sociales, donde un trailero llamado Luis Fr. se encontraba viajando hacia Lagos de Moreno, cuando de repente llegó a divisar una extraña figura en lo alto de un cerro. Se detuvo para poder grabar lo que estaba observando con mucha curiosidad. ¿Sus ojos le estaban jugando un truco? Es lo que se preguntaba. El video...
Up there on the center thing, because he's gone that.
I just found a little bit of snow, some piled logs, but as we wander up, as we wander up into the trees a little bit, we notice that there's a pile of a brush here. And as we look inside, we find out that something...
Brad's getting eaten alive.
Brad, let me climb out for a minute. Let me get a look into this thing.
Oh.
Let me walk around it a little bit. First of all, some kind of creature has taken and piled tons and tons of leaves and branches to either camouflage or make a place to hide. We notice claw marks as we look at the trees and stuff. Then we come around, we spin in here, and we see how whatever it is has been all smoothed out.
be sleeping with my revolver next to my pillow this time.
We see that they use trees around about to just.
I see how they're broken, snapped like
They're
twigs.
snapped like twigs. No hatchets. No. No human marks of a saw. Everything snapped as though by mighty, mighty strength. Every bit of the.
I seem to have picked a human camping area. So you can see with these fire pits.
We see down here a fire pit, but we see no evidence that there was ever a fire.
He's walking down.
Oh my word.
Bigfoot's walking down right now.
Huh?
See, he's standing taller. Uh-oh! I'll get back to camp.
We see something moving on the hill above.
Run!
Where?
Where is it? Is it like where those trees, like right on the right side of it? No, it stopped and looking at us.
It's kind of looking at us.
I don't see it.
Moving now.
The trees? It's to the right of him. It's walking that way. What trees? Trees? Okay. See the King's Castle? Yeah.
He's that kind of little skinny thing.
That little thing.
Oh, it's him.
Yeah. On the right side of the tree.
Kind of small, but this is a far way away.
I don't see nothing. Seriously.
On the ridge.
On the ridge?
Right on the ridge.
Almost to those trees.
He's coming down this way. See the patch of snow in the middle there? There's 3 patches of snow up there. See the one right up, straight up above the patch of snow.
Right under that big wall.
Yeah. The bigger patch of the 3 patches of snow.
Over here?
Yeah.
What about it?
He's walking up right on the ledge. See, he's just there. Did you see him moving? He's almost to the tree. There's those 2 trees. Or 3 of it might be 3 trees.
He's
Just
in the
walked
trees.
into the 3 trees. You see the 3 trees there, don't you? Yeah. Right up the very ridge. Well, wait a second. He should.
The thing snapped there like that,
Yeah,
right?
right. He should come out in between them or past them, I would think. There he is. See him right between the 2 trees right now? See?
Oh, yeah, he's walking down.
See, he's between the 2 trees right now.
Yeah. Okay, we'll go for people.
Where? Dang it. He
2
must have.
trees to the left of King's Castle.
Yeah.
See King's Castle?
Yeah.
He's shaking his fist at us.
He's right in between the 2 trees right now.
He's screaming at us something. Get out of my camp. Get out of my camp.
He's probably saying, hey, there's 15 Bigfoots down there.
He's coming, is he coming down?
He's
like
jumping up and down. He's going back and forth. He is furious. He knows we're in
He's
his.
acting kind of strange.
Now he's almost in the tree.
Where's John?
I should go over to the left of there.
There he is.
That
It
is.
doesn't look like a person.
It does not look like a
Doesn't
person.
look like a person.
Its arms are way too big. Look at how long the hands hang down to the.
How can you see
yeah,
from...
They're down to his knees at least, aren't they?
Look what I'm looking at. Can't find him now.
Now when the guy comes walking down and says, hi, you're gonna erase all of that, I hope.
This is.
Why?
Because it's not very...
Probably about an hour. It gets darker at night.
Okay, we better have our Bible.
His arms obviously hang.
Hold on. I need to...
His arms obviously hang below his knees.
Shh. Don't make fun of Sasquatch.
I'm running out of focus here. Right there we go.
I say we bag him.
Huh?
We could probably get some pretty good money. Just tranquilize the sucker.
Just photos are all we need.
It's not very good proof, though. If you actually show up with him sleeping in a cage, that's proof for you. John's got the 22.
We're definitely not going to shoot him.
No, tranquilize him. You can... John's a smart guy. He can figure out a way to use that gun to get tranquilized.
Well, here we are. It's Wednesday morning. We've seen no sign of our visitor. Looks like Bigfoot has decided to take another path. Everybody's up. Here's our camp. Oh, there's some people cooking breakfast.
First place the United States military targeted was a museum. Not just any museum, but a museum right in the heart of Babylon. Babylon is the most famous city from ancient Mesopotamia, whose ruins lie in modern-day Iraq, 59 miles southwest of Baghdad. The name is derived from Bavil or Bavalim, which in Akkadian meant Gate of God or Gate of the Gods. This claim of the military first targeting a Babylonian museum was given to Tom Horn, the creator of Skywatch TV, by a supposed curator from the Babylonian Museum. Now, of course, we can't just go off of one testimony for solid, absolute truth, but we can look at the rest of what happened in Iraq and see that this could very well be the case, including a strange message sent to Hillary Clinton found on the Freedom of Information website talking about the tomb of Gilgamesh and where the Nephilim body is buried. I'll get to that in just a moment, but a few other articles to back up this claim. Fox News in 2015 posted, UNESCO US military did damage to the historic site of Babylon. Within the article it says that Americans handed the site back to the Iraqis 21 months after the March 2003 invasion, pointing out the fact that the US military was controlling sections of ancient Babylon. Or another article here saying US to return Gilgamesh tablet, 17,000 other artifacts taken from Iraq. This article on Al Jazeera says that it's believed the tablet was looted from an Iraqi museum in 1990 and introduced in the United States in 2007, just showing the fact that the United States has a history of stealing artifacts, especially those related to Nephilim bloodlines. Now, there's a video that surfaced in 2013 claiming to record the actual tomb, body, and some artifacts of Gilgamesh. This footage, of course, cannot be verified and very well could be fake, but I figured I would play that footage while I pull up a message that was sent to Hillary Clinton that is absolutely not fake. This message can be found on the US Department of State Freedom of Information Act website. I will leave a link to this in the description below. If you click on the top link, it pulls up a number of messages sent to government officials. Now, I read online that this one was allegedly sent to Hillary Clinton. I guess there's no way to truly know that for sure, but this is absolutely a message that was sent in regards to the body and location of a buried Nephilim. On page 470, 6 messages up from the bottom of the page, we can see that Denitra D. Singar sent a message that reads, requesting documents pertaining to the resurrection chamber of Gilgamesh, the location of his body, and the location of the buried Nephilim. This was on December 12, 2018, and the case status for this is closed. So this message at the very least proves that the United States has an interest in locating the body and burial sites of giants and Nephilim, something that, of course, if they were ever questioned about this in public, such as happens with inquiries to the Smithsonian Museum, would say that giants and Nephilim didn't exist. Now, what would be the reason for anybody to locate or cover up the existence of the giants, the offspring of the Nephilim? Well, because there is a high likelihood that they are trying to reincarnate these entities, and when successful, these will be some of the entities that come upon the earth in the last days that cause men's heart to faint from fear of those things coming upon the earth. An obscure end times Bible passage that is rarely mentioned is in Isaiah 13, the burden against Babylon, which Isaiah the son of Amos saw. In Isaiah 13:3 it says, "I give command and I bring them. Giants are coming to fulfill my wrath, rejoicing at the same time and insulting." Could this be the reason why the CIA is investing in so many DNA editing firms? One such firm, Colossal, who claim on the surface level's main focus is to bring back the woolly mammoth by the year 2027. Just imagine what such DNA editing firms would do if they got the bones of giants, the offspring of Nephilim, and were able to bring them back to life. I covered this more deeply in a recent video that I'll leave linked in the description. We also have claims that giants even still exist, and the military is trying to extract them as well. The Kandahar giant is an alleged 12-foot humanoid that confronted the US forces in the mountainous regions of Kandahar. We know giants existed before the flood, and even after that, there could be a possibility that a very small remnant of giants even still exists today in the earth. Much of this information and these theories have been released by the pioneers in the subject, Gen 6 Productions, L.A. Marzulli, and Skywatch TV. I recommend looking into those guys more if you're interested in the subject. So what was the real reason for the Iraqi war? Was it to find weapons of mass destruction that we really didn't have solid evidence actually even existed? Or was it to find Nephilim DNA to resurrect the giants that God will use against those who resurrect them to fulfill his wrath, as told to us in the burden against Babylon in Isaiah 13?
That an American Special Forces soldier in service in Kandahar, Afghanistan, was slain in 2002 by what was labeled a 1,100-pound, blade-brandishing, 12-foot-tall giant straight from the Bible. All this was, of course, before the giant was taken down by the military. When asked, of course, the Department of Defense spokesman claimed that there was no record of such an occurrence. Recent curiosity about the story was generated by a video by L.A. Marzulli, an author, blogger, and filmmaker who fancies himself a truth-teller, determined to link contemporary times with biblical beings and divinations. On an episode dated the 13th of August 2016, on his YouTube channel, Watchers, he claimed to have interviewed a military contractor or soldier who saw the giant of Kandahar kill the soldier before being put down by troops and swiftly taken away by an aircraft to be stashed away from the prying eyes of the public. Marzulli claims that the giant was a Nephilim, referred to in the book of Genesis as the progeny of fallen angels and human women, who occupied Canaan at the time of the Israelite downfall.
I found the story hard to believe, and frankly, who wouldn't? As a 12-foot, 1,100-pound giant living in the present day is something that is the stuff of tall tales. Or is it? Last year, Richard Shaw, the director and co-producer of the Watchers series, was being interviewed on the Dr. J radio show. After the show had ended, Richard continued with a conversation that had been initiated by a military guy who had called into the show. One thing led to another, and this caller, who shall remain anonymous, told Richard that he was in Afghanistan in 2002 and was one of the shooters who killed what has now become known as the Giant of Kandahar. Richard emailed me with the news that this man appeared to be truthful in relating his experience. The next day I called this person, whom from here on out I'll refer to as the shooter. I interviewed him over the phone and then an additional 3 times afterwards, listening to his story, seeing if he embellished it or changed important details. I then flew out to an undisclosed location and met the man face to face. I watched his body language very carefully, and I thought he was forthright and not telling us a canard. Still, Rick and I were hesitant about running with the story, as it was almost too incredible to believe. At this point, Providence provided yet another witness. This man too was ex-military and had served in Afghanistan. He was my driver at a conference that I was speaking at, and I struck up a conversation with him about his military background. I casually and sort of tongue-in-cheek asked him if he had ever heard of a giant being discovered while he was on duty. The man never missed a beat and replied, "Oh, you mean the giant of Kandahar? He was shot by our guys a few years before I got there in a cave or a mouth of the cave or something like that."
We would come back to the base and we started hearing this rumor about a unit that killed this, what they started calling this really tall person. At first I didn't think anything of it, and then come to find out that the person that they killed actually was 3 times the size of a man, had extra digits on their hand and digits on their feet, and had red hair, and a special unit had come in and wanted this target.
When I arrived at the venue where I was speaking, I phoned Richard and I told him we had yet another witness to the giant story. The initial story that was told to us was related verbatim by this man as fact. We then interviewed both of these men for our film, Watchers 10 DNA. There was also a dynamic of the story that I want to point out to you, and it's this. A while back, I interviewed Chief Joseph Riverwind right here on PPS Report. The chief and I spoke about what I have come to call the Nephilim lance. This artifact was discovered in the backwoods of Michigan by an outdoorsman named Bob Shelley. Bob gave the original lance to the chief, and I'm holding a reproduction of it, a 1-to-1 reproduction of it, here as I speak. This weighs about 8.5 pounds. It's very heavy, and when you take this and lash it to a pole, it would be very difficult for a 6-foot man to wield. And yet, this is exactly what the shooter saw the giant wielding in Afghanistan. The reason I bring this up is because when I showed this lance to the shooter, he commented that this artifact was similar to what the giant of Kandahar was wielding. There is another dynamic I want to discuss before we run the clip from Watchers 10 DNA, which, by the way, has become viral. The fact that this giant had 6 fingers and 6 toes, as well as flaming red hair. There was also a stench that was as powerful as a skunk, but according to the shooter, smelled more like a pile of rotting corpses. Here's the clip, and you can decide for yourself if giants are alive and well and living in the present day. You were in Afghanistan in 2002, and you were called into a very remote section of Afghanistan because a patrol had basically gone missing.
Exactly.
Okay, and there's no villages around
nothing
for miles.
Right.
So it's very remote.
Yeah, very remote. So we flew in. Did about 4 kilometers. We're hiking through the same area where they were supposed to make one of their checkpoints, one of their rally points. And before we left, there was all kinds of what happened with an ambush, but that was even odd because at point of ambush, you would call for maybe close air support, something, okay? There was no calls made, just off the grid. So we're coming down a mountainside, and it was a nice path, a goat path. As we bent around this corner, you could see this opening of the cave. There's a cave as we're coming around. And then I see there's a lot of rocks, which is another oddity, and then bone matter. I'm not close enough to identify what kind of bones, but I did see something I knew was a piece of our communications equipment. So instantly, we're thinking ambush, maybe animal, could be anything. And there was enough room in front of this cave, but it had a sheer drop-off. But there was enough room that we actually got into a decent dispersal in case of ambush.
You see something coming out of the cave, and it's moving with a speed and agility that catches you off guard. Everybody.
And he comes out. It was a man at least 12 to 15 feet in height. This is a monster. Red beard, then his hair was longish past the shoulder, a scarlet red, and Dan runs at him and starts shooting, which broke all of us into the reality. Because it was
so
surreal.
Now your training is kicking in.
Oh yeah,
okay.
Muscle memory, complete muscle memory. While Dan is moving at him, another bro of mine's laying down fire, and I start firing. He skewers Dan. He's now got him on this pike. It went through him. He's still got him, and he's coming after more. We all just clicked in. I don't know what it was, but I remember we're all like, shoot him in the face, shoot him in the face. And our weapons components were M4s, we had 308s, and we had Barrett 50s. This is sounding longer than it took. We're talking 30 seconds. And he's taking multiple hits, and is still moving.
He talked about this giant being 1,100 pounds, anywhere from 10 to 15 feet long, and it was killed. It was apparently shot somewhere in a cave in Afghanistan, but before it was shot, it lunged at several of our troops, our soldiers. It may have even gorged somebody. It was just a bizarre story, and it just sounds like the Nephilim from the Bible, doesn't it?
That's why we're so fascinated by this. First off, can you imagine actually seeing something like this? A giant this big who's 12 feet to 15 feet tall. Take a good look at your ceiling. It's probably about 8 feet from the floor. Add another 4 feet on top of that to get 12 feet. Add 7 feet. And you get a 15-footer, and as you go up, you've got to go out. That's how big this thing was. I can only imagine how the shooter and his battle buddies must have felt, and the fear that flashed through their minds, paralyzing them until their training kicked in and they brought the giant down. But not before the giant had impaled Dan on that very large pike.
And you have to assume that the giant is not alone, that the giant is not the only being living on this planet. There's got to be a whole school of them somewhere. Maybe he's got a female mate. Maybe he's got children. Who knows? Unfortunate that he had to attack our soldiers rather than be somewhat peaceful. But I guess that comes with the territory.
Dan was dead. Okay, and why is a good man, probably one of the best men I know, now dead. Before I'd left, they were already starting what they call a 9-line, which is a medevac request. They're sending out a medevac request, then all of a sudden it's not a medevac request. All of a sudden we had a helicopter show up because, like I told you, it was a large precipice and a sheer drop. So the helicopter just came up from the drop. They had dropped netting, which is like cargo netting. It's like squares. We were told we had to bundle him up. And we get another bigger helicopter, but it's almost like a Jolly Green Giant used to look back in the day that could get, through this area. Because the mountains, you gotta remember, Chinooks could only go in certain places because they had enough lift. Mm-hmm. And so we got him on there. The thing was too big. We couldn't move it. It smelled worse than a skunk. A corpse that's been around for a while.
Really fell.
Oh, it was like a combination because of the, how do you put that, the persistence of a skunk smell. But once the helicopter came in, dropped its little hook, and off he goes. The communication was sent out that we had a very large possible human creature.
There you are in the hills of Afghanistan. How many troop members are you with?
We had 6 on my crew. When we say hills of Afghanistan, for us, we did not fly into the wilderness. We actually flew into a base. I guess this thing was transloaded out of the mountains by a CH-47. What I could see that it did have the 6 fingers. I remember taking my foot up and placing it up next to its foot, and it was extremely large. We estimated at about 12 feet, give or take. What I can tell you is the weight of the thing. Basically, it was approximately 1,500 pounds when it was getting on the aircraft. Now, if you take away the pallet weight and all the rigging that we had to hold this thing down, we figured it was around 1,100 pounds.
Of course we're upset. That's a given, okay? We lost a very good guy. But add to that, you're discussing something that even in our after-action report, they're saying rewrite it. And we had to rewrite it the way they wanted.
How many fingers?
Six toes. And the nails were weird because if you see somebody that ever has, I don't know what it's called, but it's
like a fungus on
the nails, how they get pointy and they're like gnarly. That's what they look like.
As we showed you in the clip, the radio operator checked in and gave the report, and the unit was told to stand by as Central Command was about to dispatch 2 helicopters to them. They were told that the giant would be loaded on one of the choppers and then they would follow in the other chopper for debriefing. The shooter told us that when the chopper landed, they loaded the giant into a very large cargo net. The first chopper towing a giant left, and then they boarded the second helicopter and followed. When they returned to their base in the Kandahar province in Afghanistan, they were debriefed and told to keep all of this under wraps. They were forced to sign a non-disclosure agreement, which essentially would prohibit them from talking about this to anyone. It is with great reluctance on the shooter's part that he has come forward. He believes that people have the right to know what is going on this planet, that the supernatural is real, and that the startling and unsettling fact that a remnant of a legendary Nephilim are still on the earth may be true. While the shooter's story is certainly fantastic, it does corroborate Stephen Quayle's account that he published years before. And people have a right to know about this stuff. I mean, if there are 15-footers or 18-footers roaming the planet and our military has brought them down, I mean, we have a right as American citizens. I mean, this isn't classified military stuff. This is something that we need to know, and it points back to the biblical prophetic narrative. What are your thoughts on that?
I think, here's my personal opinion. My personal opinion is if it points that the Bible's accurate, they don't want it. If it goes against Darwinian evolution, it's not to be spoken of.
So you're out in the boonies running around looking for high-value targets?
Correct. And we're doing those operations, and as we're getting into firefights, we're getting into different scrimmages, you want to put it that way, we would come back to the base and we started hearing this rumor about a unit that killed this, what they started calling this really tall person. At first I didn't think anything of it, and then come to find out that the person that they killed actually was 3 times the size of a man, had extra digits on their hand and digits on their feet, and had red hair, and a special unit had come in and wanted this target. Well, we'd heard that they had killed this thing inside a cave, or the mouth of a cave, and it was common knowledge among the military to hear this.
Now when you say common knowledge, what do you mean? I mean, how does that work?
Years later, to come to find out, when I had returned from Afghanistan and had met other military members that had not been there in the operations with me, if you would bring up the giant of Kandahar, they knew about it. When you first hear it, you're thinking like, this has got to be a joke, this has got to be a hoax. But then after things go down a certain way and you keep hearing it, you start to realize it's not a joke. They kept telling us to keep our weapons high, which means normally it's 2 to the chest, 1 to the head, but they kept telling us to put it towards a man's head and put it higher. So we would question, why do they want us to shoot higher than a man's head?
That's bizarre.
It is.
Our contact said 2002 is when they shot this 15-footer or taller, and you're now in this, you know, in the service around 2005. This word has gotten out, and what I find interesting here too is that if you're going to create a hoax, I get that, but you got details: 6 fingers, red hair, double rows of teeth, 6 digits on the toes, and of course that brings it right back into what we hear about in the biblical prophetic narrative, specifically the Nephilim. Your thoughts?
I agree. I will tell you that when I was doing my time in the service, and the stuff I saw, some of it I couldn't explain, like lights in the sky during firefights, like orbs, or lights that would be the size of a softball that looked that size looking up in the sky but making weird noises. And even going to Iraq myself and being near Haditha Dam and seeing the prisoners underneath the dam, and the prisoners would scream and there'd be this awful feeling underneath the dam, and then later finding out in the Bible that an angel's locked underneath there, where it talks about.
And this Haditha Dam is the Euphrates.
Is Euphrates,
and
correct.
There's an angel supposedly locked underneath the Euphrates,
correct,
which is released in the book of Revelation.
Correct.
That's bizarre. So you're actually at this site and soldiers are being locked, imprisoned underneath the Haditha Dam.
Correct.
And they're freaking out.
They were freaking out. They said they could feel it. In fact, the people who would guard them they would draw straws to see who would actually take them.
No one wanted to go down.
Nobody wants to go down. Going back to Afghanistan, we would hear these things. We would hear the locals talk about rumors of these giants.
What would the locals say? How would they talk about it?
They say that they lived in the caves and they would eat people, and
They were cannibals.
They were cannibals, and we, at the time, chalked it up to our United States as Bigfoot.
So why this is all hearsay? We don't have photographs, but we do have 2 witnesses. There's no corroboration between the 2, and Steve Quayle's witness makes 3 people, all who have come on the record, stating that the giant of Kandahar was in fact real.